The Tattooer. By Jun'ichirō Tanizaki. It was a time when people still possessed that precious virtue called foolishness, when the world had not yet begun to grind and screech as it does today. It was an era leisurely enough that professions like tea-house attendants and professional jesters still proudly existed, their role being to ensure that the faces of lords and young masters remained unclouded, and that courtesans and palace ladies never ran short of things to laugh about. Female jago, female jiraiya, female Narukami, in both the theater and illustrated novels of the time, the beautiful were always the strong, and the ugly were always the weak. As everyone strived to be beautiful, they eventually reached the point of pouring pigments into their heaven-given bodies. Bold and brilliant lines and colors danced on people's skin in those days. Customers passing through Umamaiki chose palanquin bearers with magnificent tattoos. The courtesans of Yoshiwara and Tatsumi fell in love with beautifully tattooed men. Not only gamblers and firemen, but even merchants and occasionally samurai got tattoos. At the tattoo gatherings occasionally held in Rigoku, participants would slap their skin, showing off and critiquing each other's striking designs. There was a skilled young tattoo artist named Seikichi. He was celebrated as a master no less talented than Chariko of Asakusa, Yatshe of Matsushima or Konkon-jur, and dozens of people's skin had been transformed into silk canvas under his brush. Many of the tattoos that won praise at tattoo gatherings were his work. While Darumakin was known for his expertise in shaded tattoos and Karakusagonta was praised as a master of vermilion tattoos, Seikichi was renowned for his striking compositions and bewitching lines. Having originally aspired to follow in the style of Tiyokuni Kunisada and made his living as a ukiyo-e artist, Seikichi retained an artist's conscience and keen sensibility even after falling to become a tattoo artist. Only those whose skin and bone structure captured his interest could purchase his tattoos. Even if one was fortunate enough to receive his work, they had to accept his complete control over both design and cost, and endure the unbearable pain of his needles for 1 or 2 months. In this young tattoo artist's heart lurked a secret pleasure and lifelong desire. When he pierced people's skin with his needles, most men would groan in pain as their flesh swelled crimson with blood, but the more intense their groaning, the more he felt an inexplicable delight. He took particular pleasure in using vermilion tattoos and shading techniques, which were known to be especially painful. Those who were pierced by an average of 500 or 600 needles per day and then bathed to set the colors would all collapse half dead at Seikichi's feet, unable to move for some time. He would always coldly observe their pitiful state and say with a pleasant smile, "My, that must hurt terribly." When weak-willed men would distort their faces and clench their teeth as if in their death throes, whimpering in pain, he would say, "You're a child of Edo. Bear with it, my needles are known to be exceptionally painful," and continue tattooing while glancing sideways at their tear-filled faces. When someone with strong endurance would steel themselves and endure without flinching, he would say, "You're tougher than you look, but wait and see, soon it will start throbbing, and you won't be able to stand it," showing his white teeth in a smile. His lifelong desire was to find a beautiful woman's skin into which he could engrave his soul. He had many requirements regarding the woman's qualities and appearance. Mere beauty of face and skin was far from enough to satisfy him. Though he investigated every famous woman in Edo's pleasure quarters, he could not easily find the flavor and tone that suited his taste. For 3 or 4 years he yearned in vain, imagining the form of one he had not yet met, but he did not abandon his wish. One evening in the summer of his 4th year of searching, as he was passing in front of the Hirasei restaurant in Fukagawa, he suddenly noticed a woman's pure white feet peeking out from behind the blind of a waiting palanquin. To his keen eye, human feet held expressions as complex as faces. This woman's feet were, to him, precious jewels of flesh. The delicate arrangement of her 5 toes from big toe to little toe, the color of her nails like the pale pink shells found on Enoshima's shore, the roundness of her pearl-like heel, the moistness of skin that seemed as if clear mountain stream water constantly washed beneath it, these were feet that would soon grow fat on men's lifeblood and trample their corpses. Surely the woman who possessed these feet must be the woman among women he had sought for so many years. Suppressing his pounding heart, he followed the palanquin hoping to see her face, but after 2 or 3 blocks, its shadow had vanished. Seikichi's yearning transformed into intense love, and as that year drew to a close and spring of the 5th year had half aged, one morning as he sat on his veranda in Fukagawa's Saga chewing on a toothpick and gazing at a potted snake plant, he heard someone at the garden's back gate. From behind the lattice fence emerged an unfamiliar young girl. She was a messenger sent by a geisha from Tatsumi, one of Seikichi's regular clients. My sister asked me to hand this Hari jacket to the master and request that you paint a design on its lining. The girl said, unwrapping an ochre furoshiki cloth to reveal a woman's Hari wrapped in portrait paper bearing an image of Iwai Tojaku, along with a letter. The letter, after thoroughly explaining about the Hari, mentioned that the messenger girl would soon debut as her protégé in the entertainment district, and asked him not to forget about her and to please support this girl as well. I thought I didn't recognize your face, so you've recently come to this area? Seikichi said, studying the girl's appearance intently. She appeared to be only 16 or 17, but strangely, her face was as eerily perfect as that of a mature woman who had spent long years in the pleasure quarters playing with the souls of countless men. It was the kind of beauty that could only have emerged from the dreams of many beautiful men and women who had lived and died over decades in the capital, where the nation's sins and treasures flowed together. Did you return by palanquin from Hirasei last June? He asked while seating the girl on the veranda and carefully examining her delicate feet resting on the bingo rush mat stand. Yes, back then my father was still alive, so I often visited Hirasei, she answered with a laugh at the strange question. For nearly 5 years, I've been waiting for you. Though this is the first time I've seen your face, I remember your feet. I have something I want to show you, please come up and stay a while. Taking the hand of the girl who was about to bid farewell and leave, he led her to the second-floor room overlooking the Kawa River. He then took out 2 scrolls and unrolled one before her. It was a painting of Daiji, the favored consort of the ancient tyrant King Ju. It showed the consort leaning weakly against a balustrade, her delicate body seemingly unable to bear the weight of her gold crown studded with coral and lapis lazuli. Her silk robes billowed on the middle step as she tilted a large cup in her right hand while gazing at a sacrificial victim about to be executed in the courtyard. The man's complexion as he bowed his head before the consort, eyes closed, his 4 limbs bound to a bronze pillar with iron chains, awaiting his final fate, it was all depicted with haunting skill. The girl stared at this strange painting for a while, and unconsciously her pupils began to shine and her lips to tremble. Mysteriously, her face began to increasingly resemble that of the consort. The girl had discovered her true self hidden there. This painting reflects your heart, Seikichi said, peering into her face with a pleased smile. Why do you show me such a frightening thing? The girl asked, raising her pale forehead. The woman in this painting is you. Her blood must flow in your body, he said, unrolling the other scroll. Its title was Fertilizer. In the center of the painting, a young woman leaned against a cherry tree, gazing down at the many corpses of men lying at her feet. A flock of small birds circled around her singing songs of victory, while her eyes overflowed with irrepressible pride and joy. Was it a scene after a battle, or a scene of spring in a flower garden? Seeing it, the girl felt as if she had discovered something lurking in the depths of her own heart. This depicts your future. All these men lying here will give up their lives for you, Seikichi said, pointing to the woman in the painting who looked exactly like the girl. Please, I beg you, put that painting away quickly, the girl said, turning away from the painting as if avoiding temptation and falling face down on the tatami, but soon her lips began to tremble again. Master, I'll confess. Just as you perceived, I have the same nature as the woman in that painting. So please have mercy and put it away. Don't be such a coward, you should look at this painting more carefully. You'll only fear it for now anyway. As he said this, his usual malicious smile played across his face, but the girl wouldn't raise her head. Keeping her face buried in the sleeve of her undergarment, she repeatedly pleaded, Master, please let me go home. It's frightening to be near you. Just wait. I'll make you into a magnificent beauty, he said, casually moving closer to the girl. In his pocket was a bottle of anesthetic he had once received from a Dutch doctor. The sun shone brilliantly on the river's surface, filling the 8-mat room with burning light. The reflection from the water created golden ripples that trembled on the paper doors and across the face of the innocently sleeping girl. Seikichi, having closed off the room's partitions and taken up his tattooing tools, sat for a while in mere rapture. For the first time, he could thoroughly appreciate a woman's exquisite appearance. Facing that motionless face, he felt he could sit quietly in this room for 10 or 100 years and never tire of it. Just as the ancient people of Memphis adorned the majestic Egyptian landscape with pyramids and sphinxes, Seikichi would color pure human skin with his love. Eventually, he placed the brush tip held between his left hand's little finger, ring finger, and thumb against the girl's back, and began pressing needles with his right hand. The young tattoo artist's spirit dissolved into the ink and seeped into her skin. Each drop of Ryukyu vermilion mixed with SHCH that he inserted was a drop of his life. There he saw the color of his soul. Before he knew it, noon had passed and the peaceful spring day began to fade, but Seikichi's hands did not rest, nor did the woman's sleep break. Even when the owner of her koya came looking for her, worried about her late return, they were turned away with "That girl went home long ago." By the time the moon hung over the Tosa mansion on the opposite shore, casting dreamlike light into the rooms of houses along the riverbank, the tattoo was not yet half finished, and Seikichi was intently trimming the candle wick. Even adding a single point of color was no simple task for him. With each insertion and withdrawal of the needle, he sighed deeply, feeling as if his own heart was being pierced. The needle marks gradually took the form of a giant spider, and by the time night began to whiten once again, this mysterious demonic creature sprawled across her entire back, stretching out its 8 legs. The spring night dawned to the sound of oars from boats going up and down the river. As the white sails descending with the morning wind began to gleam through the thinning mist, and the rooftops of Nakasu, Hakazaki, and Reigan Island sparkled, Seikichi finally set down his brush and gazed at the spider tattooed on the girl's back. That tattoo was his entire life. After completing this work, his heart felt empty. The two figures remained motionless for a while longer. Then, a low, hoarse voice trembled against the 4 walls of the room. "To make you into a truly beautiful woman, I've poured my soul into this tattoo. From now on, there will be no woman in all Japan who surpasses you. You no longer have the timid heart you once had. All men will become your fertilizer." Whether his words reached her, a faint, thread-like moan rose to the woman's lips. The girl gradually regained consciousness. With each heavy breath drawn in and released, the spider's legs seemed to writhe as if alive. "It must hurt. The spider is embracing your body," he said. At these words, the girl opened her narrow, meaningless eyes. Her pupils gradually brightened like the evening moon's growing light and shone upon the man's face. "Master, quickly show me the tattoo on my back. In exchange for receiving your life, I must have become very beautiful, haven't I?" The girl's words were dreamlike, but there was something sharp and powerful in their tone. "Well, now we'll go to the bath chamber to set the colors. It will hurt, but bear with it a little," Seikichi whispered in her ear with a nurturing tone. "If it will make me beautiful, I'll endure anything," the girl said, forcing a smile while suppressing her body's pain. "Ah, the water stings so much. Master, please, I beg you, abandon me and wait upstairs. I can't bear to let a man see me in such a miserable state," the girl moaned, throwing herself onto the washroom floor in intense pain without even drying her body after the bath, pushing away Seikichi's helping hands. Her maddened hair fell messily across her cheeks. A mirror stand was propped behind her. 2 pure white souls reflected in its surface. Seikichi was more than a little surprised by the woman's dramatically changed attitude from the day before, but as requested, he waited alone upstairs. After about half an hour, the woman came up with her washed hair flowing over both shoulders, her appearance properly arranged. And with bright eyebrows showing no trace of her suffering, she leaned against the railing and looked up at the misty sky. "Take these paintings with the tattoo, they're yours now. You should go home," Seikichi said, placing the scrolls before her. "Master, I've completely cast away my former timid heart. You were the first to become my fertilizer, weren't you?" the woman said, her eyes gleaming like swords. In her ears rang songs of triumph. "Before you go, show me that tattoo one more time," Seikichi said. The woman nodded silently and removed her clothing. Just then, the morning sun shone on the surface of the tattoo, and the woman's back blazed brilliantly.